Hey guys, my name is Francisco Hernandez, and today I'm doing another video for my Behind the Shot series, which is a series that I started basically to give you guys the whole process of how a photo of mine was taken from before, during, and after the shoot. I'm doing a video for this series every Monday, so if you haven't checked out last week's, you can do so by clicking the link in the top right corner of the screen, or if you don't see a link, then you can check out the link in the description area below. For today's video, I'm breaking down how I took this shot of Natalia. Alright, so to get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about how the photo walk was organized to begin with. And I know it's not your typical case, but since I'm a Sony Alpha Imaging Collective member, I was contacted by a Sony rep that knew that I lived in South Texas about possibly leading a photo walk that was going to happen in San Antonio. And I pretty much accepted because, for one, I had always wanted to do a photo walk in San Antonio. And two, I had family in the area, so it gave me an excuse to visit them. Shortly after I accepted, me and Sony rep started to talk about where we're going to have the photo walk and who was going to be the model. The Sony rep that I was speaking to suggested that we shoot at the historic Pearl in San Antonio, which was a newly renovated area. It was big and spacious, had parking nearby, and is also free to shoot at. If you guys haven't been there, especially if you live nearby, then I highly recommend it because I've been there twice since the photo walk, and I still feel like I haven't taken advantage of all the photo opportunities that are there. Alright, so after he suggested the historic Pearl, I did what I always do and looked it up on Google Maps, just so I can see the location before I actually get there. And this is pretty much what I saw. I was told by the Sony rep that the area was already completely constructed, so what I was seeing wasn't a completely accurate look into how the location was going to be, but what I could learn from this little Google Maps walkthrough was where the sunlight was going to be. If you guys didn't know, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, so what that told me was that the sunlight was going to go all the way over here and hide behind these buildings. So I either need to shoot at a time where the sun would still be high enough that the buildings weren't going to block it, or shoot in a location where there would be no buildings to block the sun. Aside from looking up the area via Google Maps, I also check out the area via Google Images just so I can see other locations that I might have missed from Google Maps. One quick tip that you can do is go to the tools area and go to time and custom range so you can change the results to show the most frequent pictures. When it came to hiring the model, it was pretty easy this time because the Sony rep that I was talking to had already known the model and knew that she lived in the area, so he contacted her to see if she was available, and she was, so she was hired. What I would usually do is make a Facebook post asking if any models in the area needed an update in their portfolio, or look up Facebook groups local to the area and ask the same thing. If those two don't work, I either ask models that I previously worked with before, or ask photographers that I know in the area if they have any recommendations. When it comes to the outfit, I usually ask the model to wear earthy tones, which just means things like brown, green, blue, white, beige, tan, those colors, and anything that's not too distracting or too bright like neon colors. Another thing that I ask the models to do is send me photos of their outfit choices, either hanging or laid out on the bed, just so I can know exactly what I'm going to be working with without presenting myself as a creep. It's really important to be as professional as you can, especially if you're working with a model for the first time. So what I would recommend is asking them if they want to bring a friend or a family member, and this can actually benefit you in case that you need an assistant. You can also play music during the shoot to help keep the atmosphere nice and relaxed. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is the outfit that we ended up choosing, but when it came down to the shoot, I think there was a rip or something, so we had to choose another outfit, and she had this as an option, but I felt that it was a little too fancy and didn't fit the mood of the scene that we were going to be shooting in. So we chose this outfit instead. As I mentioned before, this was a photo walk, so I was primarily there to teach, which meant that I didn't take a lot of photos, but of the photos that I did take, I wanted to show you guys some of them so you guys can see exactly why I chose to edit the photo that I did. This is one photo that I took before I added light, so you guys can see pretty much exactly what was going through my head. I adjusted the exposure for the background and then added the light, which resulted in this image. Now this photo isn't necessarily bad or anything, but it didn't have any emotion or an expression that I really liked. It wasn't until I took this photo right here that I ended up really liking her expression and the lighting and the composition. I actually took this photo of Natalia while she was posing for other people that were there at the photo walk. This is a photo that was taken by my friend Wallace, and I wanted to show it to you guys so you guys can see the difference in the angle from this photo compared to the photo that I took. So after I took this photo, I knew that it was the one that I wanted to edit because, like I said, I really liked her expression, the composition, and the way that the light fell. This is how the photo looked like straight out of camera, but I did want to show you guys some of the adjustments that I did before showing you exactly what I did in Photoshop. The first thing that I did was adjust the temperature from 5150 to 5600, and I had to do this because usually when I shoot with natural light, the auto white balance tends to be a little colder. But usually when I shoot with flash and auto white balance, the images are exactly where I want them to be, which is around 5600. The next thing that I do is usually bring up the colors via the vibrant slider and the blue primary saturation slider on the bottom. But when I do this, all the colors get increased, especially the blues and the oranges. So I reduce them right away via the saturation area and the hue, saturation, luminance section. You can also see that there's a lot of magentas and purples and blues in her shirt, which is why I chose to reduce them. And although this is rare, I did bring up the luminance of the reds just a little bit up to 20, so she can, I don't know, get a little bit more glowy. I also reduced the highlights from 0 to -25 and brought up the shadows up to 10. Immediately after this, I brought the photo into Photoshop. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is show you guys step by step what I did in the layers to show you guys exactly how I edited the photo. The very first thing I did was warp the octabox out. I could have clone snapped it out, but I just chose to warp it just because sometimes that works pretty much the same. The next thing I did was bring down the levels of the entire image, but selectively removed a little bit from the hair. So when I brought down the levels, it gave me a nice, contrast and make the colors a little bit more vibrant. But there was a little too much contrast in her hair, so I selectively removed it there. The next thing I did was dodge her and a little bit of the area around her, which you guys can see here. That's exactly what I painted on. You guys can see that I painted a little bit extra. I think this is her arm and a little bit of her hand. The next thing I did after that was I dodged her eyes just to bring them out a little bit more, and then I dodged her face. And as you guys can see from the labels of the layers, the next thing I did was remove some minor blemishes from her skin. You can see a little bit on her arm. And then I made the skin appear a little softer by just sampling a little bit of the areas around and kind of just painting them on. I usually never recommend doing that, but I guess, I don't know, I must have felt that it was realistic, so I did that. The next thing that I did, which you guys can see, is I did a little bit of liquefy just to bring her shoulders down and make the neck more elongated. And I tucked in her stomach a little bit, and I also tucked in this little area on her side. And I know it's a little controversial what I did, but I tried to make the photo look exactly how she looks. The camera does add 10 pounds, so I just kind of made her look exactly how she looked like in real life. After I did the liquefy step, I thought the image would look a little interesting if I brought a little bit of the matte effect, which I did by going to the curves layer and bringing it up right at that level right there. And I did add a little bit of warmth, which you guys can barely see. I think it's at 1%. I also added a flare from the right side and the left side. And on that left flare, it was showing up a little bit on her, so I selectively removed it off of her, so you guys can see that right there in that area in the mask. And then I also brought down the levels of the entire image, which is what you guys see right there. But I did paint the effect off of her because I didn't want her to be a little too flat. I then dodged her a bit, brought up the entire exposure of the image, dodged her face a little bit more, burned her face, which sounds a little bit weird, but I actually didn't do much burn at all. I think I just brought a little bit of darkness to her teeth, and then I removed a little bit of the darkness under her eyes, did a little bit of color toning using the color balance tool, did a small dose of frequency separation, and at this point I saw a little bit of bright areas on her skin. So what I did with this next layer is I brought a little bit of the exposure down in select areas on her body, which is why I called it burn body. Sometimes I'm not sure exactly how I want the colors to look, so I did another round of color balance and brought the levels of the tones from a little bit of reds to a little bit more greens and blues. And immediately after that, I dodged her face once again, which you guys can see right there. Removed a little bit of the eye lines that were underneath her eyes, corrected some of the green tones that were on her face, brought up the saturation just a little bit, removed a little bit of her flyaway hairs, which you guys can see right there go away. desaturated the eyes, the little area, the redness in her eyes, and then removed the little bit of wrinkle in her shirt. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something. And if you did, please give the video a like. And if you didn't like the video, please leave some feedback so I can better help you guys. Alright, take care guys, and I'll see you in the next one.